Hey guys, Danny Gustin with Danny Gustin Fitness Podcast. Today we have our guest, Tina.
Hey everybody.
Tina is one of our personal trainers here. Tina is awesome. Tina actually immigrated here from Russia, the Soviet Union, in the early 2000s. She has some unique perspectives as far as her own experience growing up, what it was like in the 80s in the Soviet Union, how that influenced her fitness, her foundation for basically everything involving fitness, nutrition, exercise, some of the struggles she had adapting to the Western diet, how she found herself to become a personal trainer, and today how she's taken that foundation from her upbringing and applied it here to make an impact on her clients, her family. And I learned a lot. I'm probably going to be trying a few of the things in my own life that she mentioned today, so I'm pretty excited, and I think you guys will enjoy this. So thank you for being here and enjoy. All right, we're live. Let's do it. So Tina, you're one of our personal trainers here, obviously, yes. Right? And Tina is a Russian immigrant. She immigrated here in her early 20s, and Tina has some really interesting perspectives. So some of those things are what we're going to get into today, and I think you guys are really going to enjoy it. So why don't you tell us a little bit about just how you ended up here in the United States?
Hi, everyone. I'm really excited to be here today and share my story. So I grew up in Soviet Russia, and the biggest part of my life was being active, and it was basically so important in the whole country to implement the sports in the kids' lives. So all the sports and activity was available for everyone, and it was free. So everybody at the schools could just sign up for whatever we wanted. We just had to sign up and show up. So I tried a lot of different sports, and that's how I stayed active all the time. I didn't really stick to any sports in particular, but I always enjoyed running, and that stuck to me even till this day. I really enjoy running. It's kind of like a stress relief for me.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
Not
that's
for
a
me.
big part of growing up in Soviet Union is the sports, the education that implemented, the physical education was very important. We had, I think every day we had 1 hour of physical education, different tests, Everything was like a part of our life. Also, the life was different. We had to walk everywhere. People didn't have too many cars, so we have to move constantly throughout the day.
What part of Russia did you grow up in?
I grew up in a small town, Yessentuki. It's a South Russia.
Okay.
So it's a small town, but we still had all the programs available for us for free.
Was it more of like, for example, a lot of people are familiar with Moscow, which is a city, right? So it's natural to walk more in the city, right? But was where you grew up, was that more metropolitan, even though it was smaller?
No, it was a really small city. You could literally walk through the whole city.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So almost like living
You could walk from one side of the city to the other, and you don't need anything. You just walk. Like there was a way to walk everywhere.
Okay, so everything's just centralized.
Yeah.
Okay, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and because how the situation was in Soviet Union, people were poor, kind of, and we were forced to grow our own foods. A lot of people, like my grandparents, had a huge...
Like it was actually mandated to have, to grow your own food?
It wasn't mandated, but people didn't have a choice. But everyone...
Because they would need to have enough food?
Yeah, it was a point that we didn't have enough food, and we would have the tickets that we would get this ticket, and you could get only certain food once a day per family. Let's say 1 loaf of bread, I have a ticket, I would go stay in line, and it doesn't guarantee that I will get that food. I will stay in line, maybe when it's my turn, they're gonna say, oh, there is no more bread for today, goodbye. So people were kind of forced to survive.
Yeah.
But everybody, even living in the city, we were given a free piece of land and we could use it for garden. Let's say my grandparents, they lived in the countryside, so they had a huge garden and they were able to grow whatever they wanted.
Okay.
Everything, fruits, vegetables, whatever, you name it, we had it.
Yeah.
They had their own animals, everything. But my parents and I, we lived in the city. So we had our garden, like a piece of land. It was in the suburbs. So they just give you a land and like you do whatever you want with it. But of course, people were using it for gardening. Like we would plant potatoes or something that doesn't require a lot of care because, it was far to go, like take care of it every day. We would like go once a week or once in 2 weeks to check and to do whatever it needs to be done. So that was like everybody had that. So it was just there, like everybody had a piece, everybody would plant whatever they want. Nobody was stealing, like it was just growing there. Basically,
Yeah.
anyone could go and just dig out your potatoes. But
But they
okay,
didn't.
here and there, maybe somebody was coming and stealing one or two, but never happened to like take everything. And people would help each other. Like today is my family who is digging the potatoes. So some relatives would come and we would do it together. Then next week is somebody else's turn. And if somebody's harvest was not good, we would like share food.
And why do you think that? Do you think that's more of a outcome of just being a part of a small town and more community
Probably,
ties?
yeah. I'm not sure how it would be in like Moscow and stuff in like big cities.
Yeah.
But probably because it was a smaller town, yeah, people were like more closer together. And we had a big family also that helped each other a lot. Plus
Yeah.
my grandparents, they grew a lot of food and whatever was extra, they would share it. Not sell it, but like give it away.
Yeah, that's awesome. Also, I would imagine like you think of Aladdin, right? The movie Aladdin, he steals the bread because he's poor, but it's kind of stealing from people who maybe have things, right? They have abundance. Where I would imagine it'd be harder to steal from people really, really need it, right?
Need
Like,
bread, yeah.
would it be safe to say then at that time, everyone was pretty aware that food was in short because that's what you had was
Yeah,
rations,
we were
right?
like kind of in the same situation, everyone.
Yeah.
So if
Why
you
was it
wanna
like
survive-
that? Why were there rations? Like what? Why were rations a thing in the Soviet Union? Because the only time I've heard about that, obviously I grew up here in America and live here. The only thing I've ever heard about with rations is like the Great Depression back in like the 1920s
Everything in
and
the
things
Cold
like that.
War, like between America and USSR, so we didn't have enough food.
So that's really what it came down to. Wow. So then you got into just this gardening experience where everybody is working together, taking care of each other. That's awesome.
It was just part of life. Like we didn't have a choice, like you have to do this. This was just natural. Like when we were going to my grandparents for the summer, we were little, like we started going there since we were little kids, and we would always help with the garden, with the chickens, with the cow, like little things, but we would stay active all the time.
Yeah.
So like basically people who want to survive, they needed to grow the food, they needed to do all these things. They needed to stay active.
Yeah. So you have this amazing foundation for community living, gardening, clean eating, whole food, unprocessed foods, right? And then when do you immigrate to America?
So I immigrated here in 2004. I was in my 20s. And the first thing happened to me, what do you think?
Well, I know, but why don't you tell us?
So I started to gain weight.
Okay.
In the first maybe few months, it's like slowly started creeping up on me. Like I couldn't understand what's happening.
Yeah.
I was just like growing like a mushroom. So within like a few months of living here, I gained like 10 kilos. I don't know
That's
how
20
much,
something
like
pounds,
20 some pounds.
like 22
So I
pounds.
start feeling, I wasn't feeling comfortable in my body, and I was like, what's happening to me? And I was tired, and I was like feeling like
Poisoned by the American
for
diet.
my frame, I was like feeling like huge.
Yeah.
So like, this is not right, what am
Yeah.
I doing wrong? Because I felt like, I'm kind of eating the same food, but of course having temptation around me, like
Yeah.
to try this and that, like never seeing the fast food, or like we started having fast foods like before I left, but I was never interested in it. Like we started having McDonald's and pizza and all that stuff, but I'm like I never actually got into like trying that stuff. So for me, all this was new,
Yeah.
like Dunkin' Donuts and like all this food, like all this spongy bread and stuff. So from there, I felt it on myself, like how coming from like all natural foods, coming here and start trying all these processed foods, like it affected me,
Yeah.
not in a good way.
Yeah. Well, it's
That was
interesting.
a wake up call.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned that it didn't feel right for
Yeah,
you,
yeah,
right? And you're kind of slender to begin with,
yeah,
right? And so that's a big thing, right? It's 20 pounds to one person might be 40 pounds to another person, right? But we all know, maybe we don't all know, but I think every person has a different threshold for when they kind of get to that point where, like, yeah, my body is not optimized anymore. This doesn't feel good. Like, I always
yeah.
know if I have maybe I've gotten maybe packed on too many pounds is when I'll just go for a jog or something like that, and I'll go, oh, this is this is a little more work than it feels like it
For
should
sure,
be,
yeah.
right? So, but so you got here, you start experiencing the Western diet,
Yes.
right? And was this something that was a conscious thought at the time, right? Like, or it was more in hindsight that you realized, like, when did you realize that the reason you were gaining weight is just because you were getting acclimated
Not
to
right
the,
away. No, it took a while. Because I was still trying to like cook at home, but of course trying here and there different foods that made a difference. But even like cooking, the food didn't taste the same.
yeah. Okay, even when you home cooked it.
Even I cooked my own meal, like I cook borscht, for example, the way I cook it back home, and here, like it
You
was
cook what?
different taste. It's the Russian soup, the red
Okay,
soup.
okay.
It's called borscht.
Borscht. Okay.
So like cooking it here in the beginning, it didn't taste the same. I was like, what's going on? Like,
It's like Nico over here having espresso here versus Italy. Yeah, cappuccino.
yeah, so it was an adjustment, definitely.
Yeah. So when did you start making that turn? Because obviously, eventually,
For like
you
the
took
better to
yeah,
change
yeah.
it.
Well, how did that process go? Okay, so you're adapting to American culture, and
When I realized, oh my God, I gained so much weight that I need to change size, like this is not okay, like there's something I need to do.
yeah,
And I met a friend, I made a friend who was a personal trainer.
okay,
He helped me a lot. Of course, I was a student, I couldn't afford to train with anybody, and it wasn't like a normal thing. We never had like gyms back in Russia.
yeah,
Maybe in the big cities, but not where I grew up. I didn't even know like what the gym was. We had a lot of outside equipment, but what people could use for like workouts. And I met this guy, and he helped me like through the process. He introduced me actually to the gym and to strength training. So that's when I got a membership and I started exploring different things. I started to run again and I started to strength train. So I was a little bit intimidated of the like free weights area.
okay. Like a lot of
But
women, right?
I started experimenting with the machines.
Okay.
It took a long time, I'll be honest, like maybe 6 months before I start noticing changes. I was like, what am I doing wrong? I'm trying and nothing is happening. Like I'm not losing any weight. But I stuck to it and I was like, keep doing it. And slowly, I noticed the change. Like the weight started dropping. I started feeling better, like more energy. I started looking better. I like dropped the weight. And that was like my wake up call. Like this is what I need to do.
Yeah.
And I know that a lot of girls who, like I used to work in retail and we worked with a lot of students who like experienced the same thing. They would come for the summer. They
Because they'd
would
be on
gain
some sort
a
of
lot
worker
of
visa or something?
yeah, it was like a program for students to visit the United States, work and
Okay.
travel. So they would come for 3, 4 months. In these 3, 4 months, some of them would gain 10 kilos.
Yeah.
It's
It's
crazy.
kind of funny.
They would
Your
come.
girlfriend goes to the States and she comes back and you're like, hi.
So I said, at
Do you still
least
love me?
I will help them
Yeah.
somehow. I could give them advice, or I know how it feels, so I
Yeah.
can start helping them like slowly to realize what's happening to them.
Yeah. Well, it's lucky they had you. So when you were beginning to lose weight, obviously you were exercising, experimenting
Yeah.
with strength training, the machines, etc. Was it a combination then of the strength training and
And cardio,
getting
yes.
back?
I
Okay,
was
cardio
still
too.
running. Yeah, I
Were
was.
you eating the same the whole time then?
Yeah, I never actually kept a diet in my life.
But as far as the Western diet,
Oh, of course, I didn't. Maybe I became more aware.
okay,
For example, I wouldn't eat 5 donuts. I would eat one.
yeah, okay. So just still
Yes.
still exposed to it
Yeah.
and still
Yes.
enjoying it from time to, but more
Yes.
moderation.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I never thought about it if you don't know any better. Just, oh, this is a donut, and you don't know that from a piece of bread
Yes.
or something. You're like,
Yes.
yeah, I'll have 6 of them.
And the funny thing, we came as students, and everybody worked in different places, and we were all living together. Sometimes people would bring like a bag of donuts or bagels or like McDonald's, and we would be so happy, it's free food.
Yeah, yeah.
So we would just eat that all day without thinking.
Yeah. Well, and part of that too is I'm sure just being young and figuring it out, right? Because yeah, who doesn't want free when they're young and you're on a
Yeah.
budget?
Actually coming here, like trying to work and save some money to bring home, like, oh my God, all this free food. Like, I'll save all this money. I'll just eat the donuts.
Yeah, yeah. So it's kind of a combination of, again, being exposed to the Western diet and not really fully understanding
Yeah.
it, but also, yeah, just like a lot of people have that, even, in more impoverished areas in America, right? They don't always have access to or make the best decisions because it's so much easier to buy what tastes really good or what's cheaper, right?
Yeah.
You almost have to make an intentional effort to eat healthier, right?
Yes.
So you start exercising, strength training, cardio mixing in, right?
Yeah.
And you're just basically still experiencing the Western diet, but in much more moderation, right?
Yes.
And you're helping some of these girls. Was when you were helping those girls, were you also incorporating exercise? Like, how much of a role did you play in their experience of overcoming their weight gain?
I would mention the workouts too. Yeah, I try to explain them about the strength training, that it's important, not just running all day.
Yeah, yeah.
That not just cardio, but you have to do the strength training. That's important, and building muscle.
Yeah.
And not to be afraid to get bulky. I'm like, do I look bulky? No. So it's actually a very, very long process.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear you say that because, Nico, I know you've heard this a million times. I've heard it a million times. If I had $1 for every time a female told me, that, I don't want to be bulky, right? So it's great to hear your perspective on it. Like, why do you advocate for strength training?
Because I felt it on myself.
And
I used to think the same way, that for women it's only cardio and running and all these classes.
maybe some like core Pilates stuff, right?
Yes, but after I started doing it myself and start seeing some muscle definition, and I start liking how I look. So first, you don't chase the looks. You actually want to chase to feel better, and that makes you feel better.
Yeah.
More energy.
And maybe this doesn't
The
happen
looks
at
will
first,
come.
but you get stronger too,
You
right?
get stronger, yeah, for sure.
And so you had one of the advantages you had is that you already had that foundation growing up,
Yeah.
right? Of being active. So in some ways you already saw some of the value of pursuing
For sure.
fitness and challenging your body, right? I think the people I've seen have the most difficulty with making that transition to strength training is they maybe didn't have something like that growing up, right?
Yeah,
Like they
yeah.
maybe didn't play sports, maybe weren't all that active. So it seems like a harder sell for them to connect to challenging your body and experiencing some discomfort, eventually leading to great results,
Yeah, and
right?
people need to realize that fitness is not just the workout in the gym, it's basically a lifestyle. You have to be active in your everyday life, not just 1 hour in the gym.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. I mean, we were even talking about that last time. Nico and I were doing doing one about how to overcome New Year's resolution failures, basically. And one of the things we mentioned at the end was you can do all these things and set all these goals, but if you're not making an identity shift, right, where you are a person who's more active, you are a person who likes to be healthy and express self-discipline and whatever translates to living that kind of life you want to live. But you can't just check the box of exercise, but then in your mind you're a couch potato, or you're just a video gamer, or whatever, a desk jockey, right? So you're helping these girls, you're making some of these shifts and discoveries on your own with the support of your friend who is a personal trainer,
Yeah.
right? When did you become a personal trainer?
That took a few years.
Yeah.
Yeah, it took a move to a different state and then having family.
Yeah.
And after having
Your own family,
kids,
yeah.
my own family, I have 2 girls. So after my girls got a little bit older and I had more time, that's when was my chance. Like, I have to do it.
Yeah. And what made you just know, I just have to do it?
I knew it. Like, it was, little signs here and there. Like, started with the guy helping me out. And I had, like, throughout the years, I had these little signs. And then I said, this is my time. And my husband, like, okay, go for it. Like, try it. I always like to help people, and because I love to be active and like fitness is in my blood.
Yeah.
So I said, like, I have to. This is where I belong. And I wasn't wrong.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you had a little bit of a taste of it with some of those girls, right?
Yeah.
Like you were, maybe not in an official capacity, but you were their coach,
Yeah, kind of, yes.
right? So that's pretty cool.
Yes.
Do you ever talk to any of those girls anymore?
Yeah, I still talk to a lot of them.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I got to know so many people through the time that I worked in retail with the students. It was an amazing experience. I still keep in touch with a lot of them.
How many of them, like what percentage would you say stayed in the US versus went back home?
Maybe 50-50.
50-50? I could see that.
Yeah.
I could see that.
And 20 years ago, more people were staying, like, versus now.
More people are leaving.
Yeah, no, more people are leaving.
All right, we're shifting gears on this podcast. Time to go into that. Why is that, you think?
It's just different. The country is different. It's not as easy. Even just to stay and to stay here legally, it's harder.
Okay.
When I came, it was way easier to apply for college. You could get visa through college. You could get visa through your employer to help you with the paperwork. Like, it was totally different. That's how I got like visa through my employer. Then I went to college. Then slowly, I made my papers and I became a U.S. citizen. I think now it's nearly impossible.
Why do you think that
It's
is?
very, very different.
It's just laws are
And
different?
I think the laws changed a lot since then, yeah.
Since this would have been, you said 2002?
2004. When
2004.
I stayed, and it was maybe for another few years, it was still easier to stay or to get your driving license, things like that. Now everything is way harder. And
again,
a lot of people, they don't want to just stay here. They want, that was my goal. Like, if I cannot leave, go visit my family and come back, like, I cannot live like that. I have to be able to have the freedom because I'm alone here and my family is in Russia. I need the ability to leave and come back.
And you could do that freely?
I could do that. No, it took me the first 4 years. It was tough
You
for
were without
four
your family for
years.
4 years?
Yeah,
Wow.
when I couldn't just leave and visit them, it was like the hardest part of my life.
Yeah, I can imagine. That's one thing I personally, I've had a lot of clients who are first or second generation, and I've met a ton of people from Eastern Europe in martial arts over the years. I don't know what it is about Eastern Europeans and martial arts. Can you help me understand that? Do you know anything? Okay, well,
Not really.
I've met seriously so many people from like Moldova or
They
like the
did.
Ukraine or Lithuania, even
Hmm.
Polish or Poland. Just for some reason, Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai. Met a lot of guys
Well,
from there.
the guys, want to be tough and know how to fight.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I think it's somewhat of
It's
a
like part
more.
of the culture.
Yeah,
The guys need to be tough.
that's right. Yeah, but that is interesting. Just that it's my perspective, obviously, as like an American. I've always lived here, and I don't necessarily know the sacrifice that is necessary to immigrate here, right? And that's one thing I've always respected about all those people I just mentioned, is I can see that, and I've understood that from their experience, and that's one thing I look at that and I go, and in many ways, these are people who really understand the American dream
Yes.
because they're people who are truly sacrificing for what they believe America represents. I mean, if you asked a lot of people, hey, what have you, what would you be willing to sacrifice 4 years of the people you love the most for? Right? A lot of people would say, I just wouldn't. Right?
Yeah.
Right? Or maybe I go off to college, but yeah, I see them on Thanksgiving and
Mhm.
Christmas, and so I always really admire that. I had an ex-girlfriend who was a Brazilian. She was on like a visa for being an au pair,
Mhm.
and I think school as well. And I just remember even that, how difficult it was for her to just be separated from her family. And so I think that's hats off to you. I think it's, and again, I don't know what's shifted over the last 20 years to why it's more difficult, but that's
Mhm.
something you've heard from people you
Yeah.
know.
Yes. And even the way, like, when the students used to come here 20 years ago, maybe 80% of them would stay. But 10 years ago, maybe only 40%, and it's just slowly declining.
And you think, again, that's mostly due to the difficult nature of it.
Or maybe also their countries become better.
I could see that.
That can be, because probably now, if I were to come here now, I would go back. I wouldn't stay because the life is different now back home.
In Russia,
Yeah.
well, yeah, it's not the Soviet
Yes.
Union, right? That's a big,
So it's all depends
no food
what
rations.
time you got here and what you got to experience.
Yeah, I want to hear a lot more about, where you've taken your upbringing and how you've applied it to personal training and with your clients, et cetera. But just remembered something I wanted to ask you earlier. It's interesting for me to hear that there would be rations essentially, right?
Hmm.
But on the same end, they would force you to. Did they force you, or was they just gave you the garden plots?
Yeah, they gave it to you.
Okay. So I guess in some ways it's them helping themselves, right? Because
Yeah,
like
kind of.
if you
Yeah.
have a bunch of hungry people, there's going to be a revolt, right?
Hmm.
But
Yes.
but yeah, it's interesting. I think that's kind of like on one end you have this dark experience of hey, food rations, maybe I'm not going to be able to eat today because they're out of bread by the time they get to me.
Yeah.
But on another end you have this cool
Hmm.
experience.
And I don't remember it to be like only negative experience. It was like just the way it was. It was all good.
And that's part of just being a kid, right?
Yeah.
Our parents sort
Like
of
we never
shelter us
thought
from
about
that.
like, oh my God, we don't have food. Like never felt that way or like being hungry. It never happened.
So you figured it out.
Yeah.
So fast forward again. So now you're a trainer, and one of the things we were talking about before the podcast is just how your experience growing up with that activity in Russia, your experience with the gardening, the idea of eating whole foods, unprocessed foods,
Mhm.
seasonally even,
Yes.
right,
Yeah, we will
has
see.
majorly influenced where you're at, right? So how have you brought that into your own life and the people you're responsible to, like your client, like your training
Mhm.
clients?
So the first thing we did when we bought the house here, we built the garden and we planted the fruit trees.
Okay. Like what kind of fruit trees?
We have apple, peach, cherry, we have grapes, we have raspberries, we have strawberries,
You have
and
all of these things,
yeah,
like even now?
yeah. And every summer,
Seriously?
I
Yeah, right. You're in America now. I'm gonna steal those
well,
peaches.
some of the trees are still small and they're like takes a while to grow, but we have them.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
the garden, every summer I do my garden. So I grow tomatoes, cucumbers, peppers. Like basically, it's not a big garden, but it's enough for our family.
What do you, so when you think about something like that, and like someone's listening to this podcast, I'm even thinking this right now, okay? That sounds awesome, is my first thought. And my second thought is, I wonder how much work goes into that, right?
It probably it's not worth it.
Okay.
Like it's not gonna you can go to the store and maybe pay less for the tomatoes that you're gonna grow in your garden because
Okay.
it's a lot of work and water and fertilizer and all that if
Interesting.
you want.
Wasn't what I was expecting to hear.
But like it's not worth it financially, but it's worth it the experience. Well, it keeps you active. You get to actually eat the real organic food. You know how you grew them. You don't put any chemicals. Your kids can just go grab a cucumber and eat it off the bush without thinking. That's
Yeah.
how I grew up, you know.
Yeah.
I used to just go in the garden. My grandparents' house would just grab the food outside, eat it, and go, you know,
Yeah.
without washing because I knew there's no chemicals, there's nothing on it. So
Yeah.
that's how I try to do it.
So in some ways, if you're doing it for financial reasons, it may not be the best
May not be the
motivation.
best, yeah.
But all the other things,
Yes.
like getting this wholesome, natural connection to
Mm-hmm.
food, seeing how it's grown, being able to just have that accessibility to just eat it. And I'm sure it tastes so much better when
Of
it's garden
course.
fresh
Oh my
like
God,
that, right?
yes, yes.
Have you actually
So
compared, like,
different.
get
Yes,
cucumber from your
yeah.
garden? Like,
Or even strawberries. The ones I grow, okay, they come out really tiny, but the taste of it, it's totally different.
okay.
Not like a plastic. They would be small, but they're so good, like so sweet and so delicious.
So the big ones are genetically modified?
Yeah,
So even when they
they
say
taste
organic
like
and
plastic.
non-GMO, they're not. What?
The biggest struggle is the squirrels. I'm keep fighting with
Oh,
them. They're stealing my food. I guess they like the
oh my gosh.
organic.
I've heard all about that. One of my best friends, Leo, his parents were first generation Brazilian immigrants, and Brazilians are big on barbecuing. So we'd be over there in the summer, and his dad would be cooking, and it was so good, so good. His mom's a great cook too, and I'll never forget being on the back porch. We're all just hanging out, and his dad comes over to me, and he's like, if you see a rabbit, I want you to snap its neck. And I go, and I'm over here like, ha, okay. And he's like, no, I mean, please kill it if you see it. I'm like, no, I'm not gonna run into the garden and just kill this rabbit. I'm like, but I guess if you love your garden and you see all the
Yes,
benefits
I
of having
understand
this
the
garden,
feeling of the guy.
you have a different perspective on cute little rabbits. Oh, dude.
Or squirrels are the worst.
Yeah. Oh, and that's another one. They're cute.
So yeah,
Squirrels are
I
cute,
love
but-
like teaching my kids about like how the food grows
Yeah.
first of all, then to get their hands dirty, working in the garden,
Yeah.
and just eating it, trying that how natural it tastes compared to the one we buy in the store. The other thing I do, I cook. 90% of the meals that we eat from
Okay.
scratch, not like I buy a box of powder, mix it with water, and it's mashed potato. No, if I make it, I actually peel the potatoes. I
Okay.
boil them. Like, so I cook all the meals.
And that's another thing, right? You hear someone hears gardening, and then again, at first glance, sounds great, awesome, and then you realize there's some work that goes into it.
For sure.
Sounds like it's worth it. At least it seems like a good call to action for anyone who wants to have a garden is, hey, you can always try and
For sure. Just
start
give it a
small.
try.
Maybe do tomatoes. In fact, Crystal and I are talking about that. Just maybe just doing some tomatoes in the garden next year.
Yeah.
Or we don't have a garden,
Pepper.
but establish that. Yeah, just something.
Jalapenos.
And then you'll know for
Squirrels don't
yourself.
like
Jalapenos, that's right. Squirrel only things squirrels don't like.
You're just gonna have a jalapeno garden.
Yeah, seriously. So, and then, but again, you have this thing that sounds great at first glance, but then you realize a little bit more effort goes into it, right? So, same thing. Over the years, a big challenge for a lot of people is what you're describing, right? The idea of just taking the time to do the home cooked meals. And I can't even sit here and say, oh, well, I'm doing it because my wife does it, right? So, what would you say to someone who they hear what you just said about home cooked meals and think that, oh, yeah, that's a good idea? How do you get there?
Start small. Do one home cooked meal a week. Start there. There is no way you don't have the time. Some of the foods they
Called out.
don't take that much time to cook, you know.
Yeah.
So just be aware of what you do with your time. That would be the first thing. Just look at your day and see, like, what do you do? Do you really don't have half an hour or 1 hour to spend on cooking?
Once a week,
Like,
right?
and for example, how I do it, we eat a lot of soup. So once a week or twice a week, I would cook enough soup for a couple of days.
Okay.
So no, it's okay to eat the same thing twice.
Yeah, I like that.
I know that some people are like really picky and they're not gonna eat the same dinner or like put it in the fridge
It's
and
too
like
much work. I
reheat
want to
it.
just eat. I almost eat breakfast and lunch are like the same things every day. The only thing I really need variation on is dinner. If I had dinner the same every day, that would annoy me. But
But two,
breakfast,
three
lunch,
times you can eat the same soup, for example.
Yeah.
That would be, you cook
especially
it
if
once.
it's home cooked and tasty.
Takes you maybe 2 hours. You have lunch for 3-4 days. Don't tell me you don't have 1 hour in your day, you know, just stop scrolling through social media and go
Yeah.
and cook the soup.
It's funny you say that because you train my wife, obviously. Well, not obviously, but you train Crystal. It's obvious to you and me. But you train Crystal, and she recently brought that up about a week or two ago because we have 2 kids. I'm working full time. She's at home, and it's a lot. It's a lot. 2 kids under 2.5, right? But what she had this intuition about and kind of checked herself on is she didn't feel like she has had the time to do the things she wants to do, to invest into herself, to get the house the way she wants it to. And so she kind of threw down the line in the sand to say, hey, listen, I think I have more time than I realize, and I'm going to cut out all social media for an entire month. And already she's starting to read a little bit more, having more productivity. You know, at first it's a little bit of, you know, but
It's tough, but
then-
we all can do it slowly.
it's like pick your tough though, right?
Yeah.
Is your tough that you can't watch social media or watch that second episode of TV or whatever it is? Or is your tough that you have to eat out every night and that ends up being more expensive
for
and more
sure.
sodium and more processed food? So we
But
have,
you can watch TV and cook. You can listen to something.
That's true.
To an episode of something and cook. You can do many things,
yeah,
They
it's a
like-
good point.
right?
And I always find that
Go
when,
for a walk and listen to a podcast or a book. Like, you can do 2 things in the same time.
so speaking of walks, that's something you do with your family often, right?
Yes, every day. Well, now it's winter, so it's tough, but we try when we get a chance to go, even when it's cold. Like we like to take walks after dinner. That was like our thing as a
Yeah.
family.
Yeah.
So we get together, we talk, we walk.
There's a theme going on here about the gardening, the home cooked meals, the going on the walks, even when it's cold. It's it sounds like, and I have some experience in this, it sounds like it's centering, right? It's almost human behavior, right? Where we've
Yeah.
almost become less human over time, right? Separated from food, right? You see a steak in the grocery store, you have no idea what the cow was or the animal
Yeah.
that went into that slaughter, right? Or the vegetables, you didn't dig your hands in the dirt, right? You didn't water it, right? We're separated from the work that goes into our food, right? We're separated from the work that goes into cooking,
Yeah.
right? And so I wonder then, kind of bringing it all full circle, part of what makes it easier to eat healthy and keep your weight down when you implement some of these things isn't just that it's lower calorie or less processed. It's that you have a deeper appreciation for what went into it in the first place. So you will be less likely, maybe more likely to eat slower, appreciate it, right? Not just like mindlessly eat, right? Is there anything to that?
I think it's just the way I was raised.
Yeah.
It's like in my blood. It's natural for me. Like after
To eat
dinner,
slower or what?
everything like to move around, even like to go for these walks. After dinner, you know how some people like after they eat, they feel like laying down. I feel like I need to go for a walk. Like I feel a need to move.
That's kind of awesome though, right? Because if you think it's fuel, right? You put fuel in your tank, right?
Yeah.
And especially if it's clean fuel.
And I actually heard that it's really healthy to walk after every meal.
I wonder why.
Something has to do with like insulin resistance that helps like process
Do you know
the
anything
food
about that, Nico?
better.
I would have just thought like digestion, helping with good
Digestion.
digestion, but I've heard that.
Like
Can you,
instead
can
of,
you,
you
can
know,
you look that up?
just laying down, you know, and doing nothing after the meal, it's more healthy when you actually move around.
Okay.
Like I heard a lot of times, like people advise to move after every meal, even like if you just move after every meal for 10 minutes, like go for a small walk, it will like make a big difference.
Okay.
So a couple of quick ones. Aids digestion, helps regulate blood sugar levels.
Insulin.
Yeah. Supports weight management, improves heart health, enhances mood, reduces stress. Obviously, a lot of them.
So the
Metabolism, energy levels.
so I guess the question right now is why don't who isn't gonna take a walk after this after next time they eat after listening to all those benefits? That's wild. Okay.
Yeah,
I've heard that
that's
before.
what I advise to a lot of my clients. Like start simple, just with a small walk.
Yeah.
That would make a huge difference.
Yeah. Yeah. So just it's the kind of like you said with the home cooked meal. Just start.
Start with one meal a week, then maybe do two, three, slowly. You'll like it. Maybe you don't know how to cook, but I think with YouTube and everything, it's so easy.
Yeah. You
You
can
can get
DIY
the
a lot of stuff.
recipe. Like I even heard you can take a picture with ChatGPT of whatever food you have, and it's gonna tell you like you can cook this and this. Like gives you detailed steps. So I believe like now it's so easy. It's way easier than it used to be
I
with all the
wasn't
technology.
I was initially afraid of the well, not ChatGPT, but like AI in general. But I love ChatGPT. Like, I think it's so cool. And one of my clients actually taught me something. I was doing some nutrition coaching with her, and she ended up coaching me because, like, not officially, but I've learned some stuff from her because I got her started on how to use ChatGPT to meal plan and things like that. And she comes back to me and she goes, "Oh, one of the things I've been doing lately is I'll see these things in my fridge." So, like, let's say, for example, you have cottage cheese in your fridge and jalapenos and celery and maybe some salami and et cetera, right? So you plug that in. Hey, ChatGPT, these are the things that, well, you don't have to say, hey, ChatGPT, just FYI. But
I actually give mine a name.
do you? What's the name?
Her name is Lily.
Lily?
I'm nice to mine in case they take over the world.
Dude, I'm the
Save
same.
me.
I say please, I say
Yeah.
thank you. I even do
I
that
said
with
Merry Christmas to mine.
Merry Christmas. Like, Nico blows it a kiss. No, I do the same thing with the Alexa, the Amazon one.
Yeah.
I'll say thanks, Alexa, or hey, Alexa, can you please, right?
Yeah,
So,
it's
you
just
never know. You never know. But she types so you type all this stuff in. Hey, this is what's in my fridge. Can you help me make a meal that's 500 calories and has 30 grams of protein? Do-do-do-do-do-do. And then it'll tell you, like I did this yesterday actually with someone just to show them how that works. And it was like, oh, you're going to want to cook the meat for X amount of time in a skillet and then mix the cottage cheese in with the blueberries. And then, like, what? That's
Pretty
so cool.
It is cool.
You know, so to your point, part of the problem is it's easy to do, right? Which is the good thing. But that could also be part of the problem too, right? Things that are easy to do are sometimes easy to dismiss. I think. Like in most cases, it should be something that you should do. Tina's over here judging everyone. She's like, get your ass in here, make some home cooked meals. You know.
from scratch, not from a box. That's not cooking.
But going along with the starting small thing, right? So if that's what you got to do to get your foot in the door on home cooked meals, so partially home cooked is better than zero home cooked, right?
What's partially home cooked?
I just told you, you do everything raw except maybe the chicken stock.
Okay.
Because
That's
how could you? Is there a more home cooked version of chicken stock?
Yeah,
You
cook
can-
it with the.
You wring a chicken out, it just starts.
You catch your own chicken. Got that.
Guys, that out.
And hey,
That's how my grandma used to do. Okay, today we're
My-
gonna eat chicken.
my
She goes to the
grandparents
chicken coop, takes a chicken, cuts the chicken, cleans the chicken.
Then you probably burn some calories doing that too.
Imagine.
Badass.
Milk the
did your parents grow
cow.
up in Italy?
My dad was born in Italy, but my grandparents were same thing, kind of like she's saying. They would do stuff like that.
Okay.
Not my parents, but
Milk the cow.
Milk the cow, walk the cow to the fields, then every night go meet the cow, bring it home. And all the animals were just walking.
Meet the cow. Like
Yeah, that was my
you're
job.
courting it.
That was my job
Come here.
actually.
Come
I
here,
was
Bessie.
going to meet my cow. She knew her way home anyway, but I was just there to make sure, she
Yeah.
gets home.
Yeah.
And also like chickens, all the animals, they would just walk freely.
Yeah.
It was amazing. Like they had their chicken coop and they would go outside, be outside all day, come home to sleep, to eat, to make the eggs. Nobody was like killing them, eating them, stealing them.
So the answer is we all just need to start a homestead. We'll do a commune.
With the prices of eggs now, I was thinking of like getting a few chickens.
I've been wanting to do chickens for a while.
I think
also
you're
think
allowed
that-
to have like
Yeah.
5 chickens in Naperville. That's what I heard.
Yeah, I think you have to do unincorporated. So you can't just live anywhere and do like chicken coops from what I understand.
Yeah.
But which is kind of a
That's
bummer.
a good idea. We should
So
start a chicken coop.
by the next time you're on the podcast, guys, we'll have started a full commune. It'll probably be a cult by then. So you'll hear about us in the news. Well, Tina, thank you so much for coming on.
Of course,
Seriously,
it
I
was a
love
pleasure.
It's awesome hearing about your perspectives on things because it's distinct and unique probably from a lot of just people who grew up here, their own experience, and I definitely think there's a lot to learn from it. So thank you for sharing and
Of course.
thanks for
My
coming.
pleasure. Bye.